Welcome back to the Wolff Den presented by Win Again Academy. I'm Matt Wolff, founder of Ticket Time Machine. Today we welcome Stephen Gunzenhauser to the show. Welcome. How's everything going?
Thank you. Great. Tremendous. Although I wish I had Florida weather.
Soon enough, right? It's May. It's May 1st,
Yep.
which means two things. One, my birthday's tomorrow, so
Oh, happy birthday.
early celebrating and thank you. And number two, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, so hope to get some good content out there around mental health. If you are listening, definitely check out Same Here, global.org, which is the mental health organization that I help champion for. Eric Kusin's done some great things in the mental health space, and hashtag 5 and 5, meaning everyone has some sort of mental health issue that they're dealing with. I'm wearing a Same Here endurance hat. My brother does endurance events under the Same Here team. So mental health, it's very important to me and to the people around me. So that's May, Mental Health Awareness Month. Now we're here to welcome Stephen to the Den. Good to have you. You're a conductor. But for the people who don't know who you are, give a quick intro and then we'll get to it.
Well, I was born and grew up in New York City, but I've become a professional conductor. Really lucky throughout my career. Guest conducted over 100 orchestras. Was a Fulbright scholar for 3 years. Lived in Germany. Won a number of conducting competitions, and have recorded over 80 works, both classical as well as popular music. I was also the first American that went behind the Iron Curtain as an artist to record in what was Czechoslovakia. But in addition to that, I am also the same Stephen Gunzenhauser who conducted the 1993 pennant for the Phillies against Atlanta, sixth game, and it was the seventh inning stretch. They had a 5-foot Dayglow baton, and it was stolen out of my hand on national television by an over-inebriated fan from the 700 level of the stadium. And I continued to conduct, and it's available on YouTube. Fan swipes conductor's baton. And Stan Hochman, who was the great sports writer for the Philly Inquirer, said of the event that it was really unusual. Philadelphia is unique. It's the only place where the conductor gets mugged while he's conducting. So
It's about the most Philly thing ever. My wife is a Philly girl. I grew up in New Jersey, right down the street from Philly, and it doesn't surprise me that would happen at a Phillies game. The organization that had to get rid of dollar hot dog night because people were buying hot dogs and throwing them on the field, right? So it's no surprises there. Generally,
right.
we go and start from the beginning, but I'm gonna start with the present with you, and we have the book Travels with Stephen, the Most Famous Unknown Conductor. I love the name, the title of the book, because I don't know how many known famous conductors there are to the average person, right? I mean, I don't. I know Leonard Bernstein, and that's it. My wife and I actually watch a lot of Jeopardy, and so I assume there's probably some conductor questions on there. Have you ever been a Jeopardy question?
No, not yet.
Yeah, I mean,
Not
it's one
yet.
of
A
those
good
things.
question. I would love to be, but no, no.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you have to really be into it to know who those people are, and then the people who just study everything and probably can memorize a list of it. So you wrote this book, The Most Famous Unknown Conductor.
Right.
Obviously, it talks a lot about your stories as a conductor. What made you want to write a book about it?
The fact that my wife said she was sick and tired of listening to me tell the stories after concerts at a bar. So she said, write them down so I don't have to hear them over and over again. But it's filled with a lot of different kinds of stories. The Phillies event was in there. Also, when I first went to Czechoslovakia, the producer of my first recording there invited me to his home for dinner, and I went to his home for dinner. We in his car. He parked his car. In the United States, we have never heard of a car called a Trabant. It's made of plastic, but that's the kind of car that was typical in Czechoslovakia. So we park the car, we get out of the car. He takes the windshield wipers off the car. I said, Ivan, what are you doing? He said, you don't understand. In Czechoslovakia, we have 60,000 automobiles, but only 40,000 windshield wipers. So
Like
that's
stealing
why
the radio out
they
of the
steal
car.
the windshield wipers. He takes them. Next time we go to his house, he takes the windshield wiper off the driver's side, and I want to be nice, so I try to take the windshield wiper off the other side. He says, "Oh, you don't have to do that. This is a good neighborhood."
So it's
So
not an easy thing to take the
yeah,
windshield wipers off. By the way, I've tried it or tried to put on my own, and it was a whole process. 30 years of doing what you're
it's a
doing.
different world. It's a different world over there, Matt.
Oh, it's a different world almost everywhere other than here, which is and why I love it here. Love to visit
So
everywhere else, but there's no place better to live, I think, than the U.S. Even with all the bad stuff that does happen. You've traveled to a lot of
I
places.
think with everything that does happen, I'm grateful. I've been all over the world. The only places I really haven't been have been Australia and New Zealand, and India. Otherwise, I would have been all over the world, and conducted all over 100 orchestras. So,
If
but
you had
it
to,
has been, yeah.
I was going to say, if you had to pick another place outside of the U.S. to move for, let's say, a year or two, what would you choose?
It would be up in the air. One possibility would be Argentina, because
Oh,
I absolutely love the way of life in Buenos Aires. The other place I might want to travel to and spend time would be in Germany, because that's where my family comes from.
I was just in. I'm going to bring. This is what we do on the Wolff Den. You mentioned something, and we just kind of go with try and find something. I was just in Buenos Aires. I played basketball for the Macaba games for Team USA, and they had
Oh,
these beer cans from Argentina that I brought back with me from Buenos
how
Aires.
nice.
Simpson,
Very cool. And I bet you
Simpson
got good
character.
steak.
We had good steak. Yeah, the food I thought was good, and they're going through some really tough inflation down there, so everything was ridiculously cheap. Good for us as a tourist, obviously not good for the country as a whole.
Well,
But
there's a famous saying, Matt, that between the difference between Japan and Argentina is that Argentina has all the resources and no economy. Japan has an economy and no resources.
I don't think I've heard that one before.
Yeah. So, but Argentina is a wonderful, wonderful place. Now, did you spend all of your time in Buenos Aires?
We did. I did. I mean, there wasn't as much time for sightseeing, but we did a little bit because we were playing a lot and tired. And but we got to do some stuff. I enjoyed it. I've never really been anywhere that I didn't enjoy on vacation or travel. Almost all my travel outside was for vacation. Some stuff for work. Has there been a place that you didn't really enjoy going to work outside of the U.S.?
I don't. There's some places that were less pleasant than
Right.
others. Yeah.
Yeah, or not as good. I describe it as places I probably wouldn't go back to, but it doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it. There's just so many other places to go
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. I think you could say that there were a few places that, as far as I'm concerned, I don't have to return to,
Yeah.
because I didn't like them in the first place, but the orchestra was okay. One example of that was Seoul, Korea, where the city itself is massive and the weather is horrible. So,
Yeah.
so
Where they have
putting that,
the Olympics, right?
Yeah.
the Olympics
Yeah.
in Seoul. Well, 30, a long time that you've been doing this. The book, obviously written recently. How much of this was sort of documented along the journey, and how much of it was I have to go back and kind of remember what happened?
I think a lot of it had to do with going back and remembering what happened, uh, because I never wrote anything down.
Okay.
And then last year, as I concluded my tenure of 40 years with the Lancaster Symphony, I decided I'm going to spend some time collecting some of the notes and anecdotes of what I consider kind of a blessed journey throughout my life. I've been very fortunate, Matt, in that a lot of conductors put themselves in an ivory tower and they're considered classical musicians. I don't like to think of myself as a classical musician. I think of myself as an American who has grown up in the United States, who represents the kind of flexibility of the American way of life, which includes all of us.
So when we think of conductor, we think of the person who does this, right? Conducting
Yes,
is or sort of instructing the people to play the way you want it to, the way it's supposed to be. Are
right.
Does that make you a musician, or are you a musician? Are you someone who can play instruments, can get on the other side? How does that work?
Well, when I grew up, I was a clarinetist. I went to college, to Oberlin College in Ohio, for clarinet, and then I went to New England Conservatory in Boston. And when I was in Boston, I was a substitute clarinetist in the Boston Symphony. And then from there, uh, after 2 years, I then went to Europe as a Fulbright scholar in conducting. And I continued to play clarinet up until about 4 or 5 years ago, when it just became, there was no way that I could practice. And a funny sports story that I can share with you about musicians and about sports is I was invited to a close practice of the Philadelphia Eagles football team when Buddy Ryan was the coach, and I got
Okay.
to know him a little bit. And he introduced me to Keith Jackson, who was a tight end. And the reason he introduced me to Keith Jackson is because Keith said to me he went to Oklahoma on a cello scholarship.
Oh
And
wow.
in his freshman year, he tried out for Barry Switzer on the
Yeah.
football team. And Barry Switzer said at the time, "Hey, man, you," and his response was, "I love the instrument too much to make a fool of myself."
That's kind of him. Um,
Yes.
so you're going to school. You're playing the instruments. At what point do you think I'd like to be on the other side? I'd like to be the one who's doing the conducting.
Well, from being a child, my mother had a friend who was a granddaughter of a very famous composer, and she was German. And she said to my mother when I was 4 years old, "Stephen is going to be an orchestra conductor." And my mother said, "That's a joke. Eventually is going to be in his dad's business, which was food processing engineering." And everybody laughed, and as I grew older and older, became more involved with clarinet. Clarinet was fun. Organic chemistry was work. Then when I went on to enjoy the conducting aspect of it, that became fun as compared to going into my dad's business. So there was no choice involved. I made up my mind early on. I enjoyed what I was doing, and I was only going to do it for the next 6 months. And so it was always for the next 6 months. And one of the nice things about the title, which my younger daughter designed, was because so many conductors are put on a pedestal and they live in an ivory tower, and they're always looking over their shoulder to see who's gaining on them. And they're also looking over their shoulder to see what's my next job going to be. And I've been fortunate. I've never had to deal with any of that because I was 23 years in Delaware, 40 years in Lancaster, and 18 years now with my music festival, which I designed.
How how do you choose as a conductor where you want to be, whether you want to be in Lancaster or Delaware or um, obviously there's some, I don't know that all of them, but some that might be more famous, like the Boston Symphony is just stuff that come to my mind.
Sure. Yeah, well, that's exactly the point. I think one applies for jobs, and then there's, just like in the sports business, there's a competition that exists, and then there's boards of directors that have to choose whom they want to lead the organization and whom they want to work with the musicians and deal with everything that's happening musically and in terms of HR, human resource.
But I'm saying with the success that you've had, and then you call yourself the unknown conductor, but obviously in the circles, well known, that you probably had opportunities to move to maybe a more popular or well known symphony.
It's more easily said than done. But having said that, I'm grateful for the way my life has played out. It's not like being, quote, with a minor league team.
Right.
It's a matter of I'm with an organization. When I started with the Delaware Symphony and with the Lancaster Symphony, both organizations had a budget of about $100,000. When I left Delaware, they had a budget of $3 million and $5 million endowment. Lancaster also has an endowment and also is very well supported. My music festival, which started 18 years ago in Tioga County in Pennsylvania and Corning, New York, started off with a budget of $50,000 to do 7 concerts. We're now doing 18 concerts in 17 days with a 65-piece orchestra and a budget over $300,000. So all these things can happen. And to me, part of the job of being a conductor is not just doing another Beethoven symphony. It's not like doing another Brahms symphony. Those are fine. Those are wonderful. They've been done before and they'll be done long after I'm gone. But what I can do is I can do Also Funk Zarathustra, which is a funk style of music. I can do Rhapsody in Blue. I can do so many things which most classical conductors will not do. And it's called like pops programs.
Yeah,
Like
pops. Right.
the Beatles tried.
How much is pops popular and around more than it was back in the day because that's sort of going out there from the typical symphonies that you would hear. But
I think part of the challenge is that pop's music is lovely and it's entertaining. The problem with pop's music compared to classical music is that you have to get big name artists. And when you get big name artists for pop's music, you're talking big fees, like Willie Nelson or Martina McBride or Ray Charles. And I've worked with all of these people, fortunately, and had a good time with many of them. One of the best was Fred Rogers, if you remember Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
oh, Mr.
He was
Rogers,
Mr. Rogers in person was exactly the same as he was on TV.
I would figure that's the case. And I had some conversations around his two documentaries. I saw them both. One which was mostly him, and one which Tom Hanks played. Have you seen them?
Yes, I saw both of them.
Yeah, and they don't make him like Mr. Rogers. You almost feel like it can't be true. But if anyone said there was a story about him that was him doing something really bad, I wouldn't believe it. It's just that's
I wouldn't.
how everyone says how he was.
I wouldn't believe it. He was one of the sweetest, most gentle men performers that I've ever worked with.
Yeah, incredible. I would love to have gotten a chance to meet him. The musicals on Broadway obviously have a conductor. That's considered pop.
Yeah, well, that's on Broadway. Those are entirely different type of musicians. They're used to working with an orchestra of between 15 and 25 because that's what fits in the pit. But the orchestras like the New York Philharmonic, they would not fit into a Broadway pit to be able to do. So it's a different genre, a different ability to relate to the artists you're dealing with.
What's the biggest difference
HR.
between trying to orchestrate with a smaller group and a bigger run? These are professionals. So what's the biggest difference?
These are all professional musicians, and the difference is that you're dealing with larger sections when you have a full symphony orchestra. And within the larger sections, it means there's more interaction between people. Like when you have a big company, there's a different sense of loyalty to the company. There's a different sense of loyalty to the workforce. It all plays itself out in the same way.
What do you have a preference when you're conducting, to whether it's a smaller group or a bigger group?
No, I like the full symphony. I like the full symphony orchestra because every instrument has its own kind of color. So you're dealing with, when you have a full symphony orchestra, you have anywhere from 60 to 80 musicians contributing tonal color to the sound, which to me is the best there is.
And how do you become good at being a conductor? Obviously, practice, playing with professionals.
Well, you study.
How long do
You
think
study.
get?
Yeah, well, I had 2 years in New England Conservatory for master's degree in conducting, and then 3 years as a Fulbright scholar in Germany, both studying conducting as well as conducting. And then I had another year and a half in Europe where I was assistant conductor in Monte Carlo, and then also traveling around Germany as a guest conductor. And then I came back to the United States, and there was a very famous conductor named Leopold Stokowski who did a movie called Fantasia. And I worked for him with the American Symphony in New York City.
Oh, very cool.
And that was where I met my wife, and we've been married ever since.
But at what point did you know I can really do this and get out and conduct, and that you were going to be someone who's honing their craft? I mean, was it quickly? Did it take many years?
No, it took time. It took time, and it was not easy. It's like every time you go into a competition, and then they have to select the best people for the job. But it isn't just even well, give you one example. I applied to be music director in San Jose, California. This goes back many years ago. I was just coming home from Germany, and I came in second because they said to me, the manager wrote to me, she said, you were the best candidate, but they felt you were a little young to lead the ensemble. They needed to give it to someone who was a little more fatherly in his approach. Well, hey,
it's their mistake, but I get it. Yeah. It's all about the hearing, right? For you, like you're able.
A lot of it has to do with
the other person.
And I have. There is a very famous neurosurgeon, neurologist named Oliver Sacks, and he wrote a book called Musicophilia, which is about music and its impact on human beings. And in that book, he talks about a syndrome called synesthesia. And synesthesia is when you hear a tone, you see a color. Well, I have modified synesthesia. And what that means is when I go into recording sessions, I can immediately fix intonation problems between instruments because I see the color of each instrument, and I can say, no, clarinet too sharp, oboe little flat on the G. So I can fix things quickly. And to the record companies, that's an enormous saving of money to be able to end a recording session in 8 hours instead of 16 hours.
With the hearing, it's stuff that the average person probably can't hear, and so you're almost looking at it like, we'd be looking at like, what is this person talking about? That sounded great, and you can hear the issue, and it reminds me of the movie Whiplash with J.K. Simmons. Have you seen
Oh,
that
yes, of
movie?
course.
I mean,
Sure, of
that's
course.
really going over the top for it, but it probably is that, you have to be that on it, because anything
Well,
that's
yeah,
off.
what your observation is very good, Matt. And when you bring it up, it's very important for people to understand uh, what is the best way to get the best quality of work out of people. And for example, if you make certain corrections and then you play the same piece, people won't be able to say, "Oh, you did this and you did that," but they'll say, "Gee, for some reason it sounds better." And they can't isolate the reason why, but that's up to me or up to whoever the conductor is to figure out why.
But if someone in the group of 250 is off, the audience will know, or should know,
Yes,
maybe.
they won't say, "Oh, that person is off." They'll say something didn't sound right.
Right.
Exactly.
How often does that happen in a performance?
It happens occasionally. I won't say it happens a lot. It depends on the conductor. I mean, I've seen a world-class conductor with the Boston Symphony doing a piece that they've done 100 times, and it just fell apart in the second movement because of he was unclear in what he was trying to do with his hands.
Is it more than likely something that the conductor did and not what the musicians are doing?
No, it was
Obviously, whatever
definitely
he
the conductor.
does dictates they do, but maybe they interpreted it wrong, or they were just a second
No,
off.
it was unclear is the
Unclear.
reason why it fell apart. What the conductor did was not clear. As a result, everyone reacted differently to it.
So not a lot of
Who
the
is it?
musicians missed the note, or
Like Danny Kaye, the famous comedian, once said, "The conductor has the best job in the world. He raises his hands and everyone gets quiet at once."
yeah, command a lot of power in the room. That's for sure, right?
That's right. Yes. Yes.
Who
So,
are, for the
but I've
people who
always
don't?
loved.
Go ahead.
Hmm?
You were saying
No,
something.
I've always loved. I've loved being able to shape music, being able to look at notes and have them evolve into a story, and have that connection to the audience, not just doing another Beethoven symphony or another Brahms symphony, but really connecting to the audience, so that what they come to hear allows them to go home enlightened
It's
or
a
happy or just
an acquired
having an
taste, that
experience.
type of music, right? I mean, there's not, while there is a huge market for it, it's still a very small piece of the overall music pie. How do people get into it?
Yeah.
How did you get into
Well,
it?
the
Your
thing
parents
is,
listening to it?
In Germany, well, in no, my dad did not. My mother played a little piano, so, and she loved opera. Opera was her favorite, so she always listened to opera. I don't care as much for opera. I like, just generally speaking, symphonic music. But the difference between Germany and the United States is that in Germany, the conductors are trained as classical musicians. In the United States, we're not trained that way. We're trained to be symphonic leaders. And what that means is that we will lead a symphony, whether it's for Willie Nelson or Ray Charles or Van Cliburn or Rostropovich, as compared to Europe, where they will exclusively be with classical artists. They don't have pops over there in the same way that we do. They don't have light music over there or the variety of music. And with my own career, having had the opportunity of spending time in South America allowed me to get tremendous experience with colorful, really beautiful music coming out of South America.
Well,
The
outside
tango out
of
of
this,
Argentina, the mariachi out of Mexico.
outside of this symphony, what type of music did you grow up listening to, and has that changed till now?
Well, I think some people are surprised when they hear it, but my two favorite artists when I was young growing up were Aretha Franklin and James Brown,
Okay.
because they really told it straight. They told it straight. They told it the way it is. And that's sort of what I'm trying to do with the book, is get away from all of this flowery stuff that is strictly geared towards 1% of the population. I'd rather
Yeah,
deal with 40 to 50% of the.
yeah. When you're again, we talk about a very small part of the population who enjoys the symphony or might even know any conductors. Forget about the famous the famous ones. What's the journey going to be like for someone reading it like me, who doesn't know much about the symphony or conducting, and someone who has more knowledge about it? Does it matter?
Yeah, it does. I think that this book is not intended for someone that has a lot of knowledge about music. I think this book is intended for someone that has not a lot of experience with music of any kind. And certainly I have photographs in the book with some of the artists that I've worked with, like Willie Nelson, Martina McBride. So it's been a tremendous experience for me.
You talk about how you helped teach conducting to then Senator Biden. How
Biden,
did
oh
that come to
yes.
be?
Well, he won the option to have conducting lessons and then conduct the Delaware Symphony in a concert, one piece. And so we knew Joe as senator. We were friends because I was music director of the symphony. And Delaware is a small state, so everybody knows everybody else. But Joe said to me at the time that he would rather speak to a joint session of Congress than stand in front of the Delaware Symphony with all those people that knew how to knew
Well,
what he
yeah, when you know what you're doing, you don't get nervous about that stuff.
right,
Probably,
right.
I
And
would say.
Joe got very nervous about that stuff.
I would
But
think so.
he was a good student, and he conducted Stars and Stripes. But I had
Okay.
already pre-rehearsed the orchestra, so when they did Stars and Stripes, all he did was he had to nod, and then they started, and then he
There
just
you
sort of
go.
waved along.
Is he musically
Yeah.
inclined? I know as a president, Clinton maybe played the saxophone, right? I feel like Obama.
I don't think Joe is inclined in. Yeah,
No,
Joe is not inclined in the same way.
no.
No, Joe has a lot of interests and is a full-time Joe Biden.
Yeah. Well, that's who you're supposed to be, right? You're supposed to be yourself. You have so
Yeah.
many years, so much experience. The book is not a huge book. How many stories, could you have
Oh, it just goes
snuck
on and
in
on.
there?
There are 185 pages, which include certainly a number of photographs of some of the
Yeah.
great artists that I've worked with.
But could you have written a 250, 300-page book and still told the stories? How do you pick which stories don't go in? Rex Chapman, I don't know if you know who Rex Chapman is, a basketball player, had a background of
Yes,
real drugs and addictions. And he wrote a book that just came out. He's very big presence on Twitter. And he's talking about, I mean, for like a week or so, he was just throwing out stories that didn't make the book. I assume you have a bunch of stories that didn't make the book.
I
How
have
did
a
you
bunch of stories.
decide?
Well, and my wife, who's probably the most straight shooter you ever want to meet, she's going to write a sequel to my book that should be called The Real Story by
Yeah,
Shelley Gunzenhauser.
some of them are not suitable, right? And or
Yeah,
you gotta,
there are a number of stories which I had to say I'll save it for over the age of 18 only.
Well, here's over the age of 18. Is there any example you could give of a, borderline, like we probably shouldn't put this in the book story, or at least an idea of what that story would be?
No,
Without the
I
details?
think there are a few like that, but I don't necessarily. People will read them. It is interesting. I had someone review the book through a review source called Readsy, and the person that reviewed the book was a Christian fundamentalist, grade school teacher, and she was very put off by some of the stories in my book, and
Why?
so I was very grateful because some of the stories bordered a little bit on the sexy and on the different artists that I had to contend with while I was doing my job.
So inappropriate, or
Some of it was, yeah, sexually inappropriate. But so we've saved those off the book. They'll come out in the next book.
got
And
it.
that'll be XXX rated, the next book.
There was my favorite show is Seinfeld, and they've had a couple of episodes around conducting. I don't know if you've ever seen these. One was a friend of Kramer's who was a conductor, and he would have his pants off in the dressing room, uncreased. Are there like weird quirks that people go through as they're getting
Oh,
ready
yeah.
to?
And, well, to give you a fun example, the Los Angeles Philharmonic was on tour with their conductor, whose name is Gustavo Dudamel. And Dudamel conducts everything from memory. So everyone said, what a brilliant man. Well, it turns out at the back of the hall, there's a little room with a guy sitting in it with a musical score, and he is wired to Dudamel, who's on the podium in front of the orchestra, and he's going through the work, and he's saying, Gustavo, now in 3 measures, look at the trombones. Smile once, please, at the violins. So he's actually directing, or did direct, what Dudamel did, which is ridiculous. I mean, that's complete nonsense and unnecessary. But it was very funny when it happened. And the Los Angeles Phil was not particularly pleased.
Really? What about
Well, to see
one of the things in the Seinfeld episode was she went in. Jerry was on a show with one of the tenors, and it wasn't Pavarotti or Domingo. They called him the other guy because they didn't know the name.
Jose Carreras.
Yeah. So who are the most well-known conductors, and that and maybe someone that you grew up admiring, or maybe influenced what you do and how you got to where you are?
Well, my mentors were Leopold Stokowski, who did Fantasia, the movie. And then other than him, there's some wonderful conductors. There was Leonard Bernstein, of course. And then there's Michael Tilson Thomas, who is in San Francisco. And then there was Seiji Ozawa, who just passed away, who was up in Boston for a long time. So there are a wide variety of very interesting people that have looked upon the job in different ways. And it's been exciting, it's been challenging, and it's been a wonderful road.
Where do you put yourself in the line of great conductors? You're obviously probably a little bit poking fun at the title, the most famous unknown conductor, but obviously you're someone
Yes.
who's done.
Well, you see, what you're doing, Matt, is you're doing kind of an up and down scale. And what music is all about is much more of a horizontal scale, which means, yes, someone with the Boston Symphony makes more money. That doesn't necessarily mean that he's in a better quality of life.
No, I mean just as far as the skill and the craft that they had. It doesn't necessarily mean you're better if you're doing it for Boston.
No, not at all. Not at all. But being music director of a major orchestra it's like being the captain of the Titanic. You've got an enormous ship that you have to contend with. When you're with a smaller orchestra, you have more opportunity to navigate the growth and the popularity of the orchestra.
And more creativity to sort of put your
And
spin
you have
on
more
whatever anything
creativity.
is.
Absolutely. There was a conductor in Los Angeles before Dudamel who is an outstanding conductor from Finland, Esa-Pekka Salonen. And he absolutely changed the nature of the orchestra because he got them to do pieces of music other than what I call the nifty 50, the 50 most famous pieces of music. He did things other than that. And I mean, to me, that's the message that we want to send out. We are not just about Beethoven and Brahms and Tchaikovsky and Rachmaninoff and Dvorak. We're also about Willie Nelson and Chris Christopherson and Martina McBride and Benny King.
Who would you like to, if you could work with someone back in the day who was a great conductor, and this, today's world, music world, what are some people that you would wish you would be able to work
Well,
with?
the people that I really love were my mentors, Igor Markevich, who is music director in Monte Carlo, and I was assistant conductor, and Leopold Stokowski. And they came from two completely different worlds in that Markevich was very solid. He did not move around a lot at all. He stood in one place. He had 3-foot positions, and he created an intensity in the sound
Is
that
that
was.
common to not move around, or that's uncommon?
No, it's not. It's not. And for example, Stokowski moved around more. So here I had two completely different mentors. And so I sort of became a little bit of each one of them.
What was the best advice they gave you with regards to being a conductor, and then maybe just in life? I mean, we talk about the power of a mentor. Sure, we want someone to be able to guide us in what we're doing, but a lot of the power in mentors is the life experience and the stories that they have, and maybe the advice that they give you that might not really have anything to do with what you're trying to do professionally, but it really can hit home personally and make you a better person or make your life better.
Yeah. And I think that I would have to say that Leopold Stokowski was probably my greatest mentor in the things that he brought out about the show business of being a conductor. Because he was originally English, Leo Stokes, and he decided when he became a conductor he was going to be Leopold Stokowski, and he was going to have this long Polish name, and he was going to develop this Polish accent. And I said to him, Maestro, my name is Gunzenhauser. Should I change my name?
No, it's a great conductor name.
He said, it's a great conductor's name.
Yeah.
Keep the conductor's name.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
We changed Stephen, but
Yeah.
that's still pretty good too with the PH.
With a PH
With a
instead of
PH, right? If it was Steve or Steven with a V, we say, all right, we got to change that, or just
after the Phillies win in 1993, people along the street in Wilmington would say, "Hey, look, there's Stevie G, the conductor."
You're a Philly fan. Did you watch the game last night? That was incredible.
Yes, I'm disappointed though. I'm disappointed. I liked Doc, whatever the coach, the
Rivers,
last
coach,
yeah, Doc Rivers. See, I have some reservations yet about Nick Nurse.
Yeah, I think the players got to play. They could have won each of those games that they lost, and they could have lost last night.
They certainly should have won the second game.
Yeah. Philly's great sports city.
Yes.
Anything you see in the industry that you're not fond of that you would like to change or take away with maybe some of the newer people that are and what they're doing?
Yeah, well, I believe in connections, and I believe that the symphony orchestra has to become a symphony orchestra, not a classical orchestra. And therein lies the difference. I mean, American tastes are changing so much differently from European tastes. That when people go to concerts, they want to be entertained. So you've got to find things that will entertain them, not leave them depressed.
And it's like there's no new wave like in the way of music. There's changes to it, but the music has been the music for so many years, and it's got to be passed down and acquired from the new people, right? And you got to acquire some new fans, but you also want to keep the fans that are there, not go into some other form of
Yes,
entertainment.
that's
No easy
exactly
task,
correct.
I would think.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Right on. Right
How
on.
much of the business side were you involved being the conductor?
Uh, that was, I was involved with a lot of the business side, both in Delaware, and before Delaware, I was executive director of the Wilmington Music School. So I had to learn how to read and run a budget. I had to learn and read how to do HR.
Yeah.
All of those things entered into my growth as not just, quote, maestro, but a growth as a human being that is in a position of artistic leadership.
Do people call you maestro? Do you like when they call you maestro? That was another funny
It's
thing.
an Italian, yeah, well, it's an Italian term and it means teacher. So I'm happy to be called maestro, but I find it a little bit off-putting. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It puts me in a category along with swine flu.
I don't know how that is, but
Well, I mean, it separates me out
yeah,
from being a normal human being.
yeah. Oh no, but you have a skill, a talent that it's just. I think it feels like it's just being recognized in a way more than the negative connotation. The book. What do you want people to come away with it? I talked to my mom the other day about a movie. She said, I don't know what the message is. What do I come away with this movie that we saw? What's the message and the feeling that you want someone to come away with after they read your book?
I want
And
them to come away deciding that they're going to go to a concert to see what this is all about.
how easy is it to get to a concert? I mean, is this
This interview will deal with curiosity, so that people are really very curious about the whole world of something for which they know not a lot.
how easy is it to get to a concert? Obviously, the big cities, but still Lancaster, Delaware, those are not.
It's easy.
In
Depends. There's even a Lake Worth Symphony.
Lake Worth down. That's on the
There's
other
a Lake.
side.
Now, where you're Jacksonville.
I'm technically
Jacksonville
in
has
Lake. I'm technically in Lake Worth, but I'm on the west side. That's more. But
Oh,
Lake
okay.
Worth Symphony is over by the beach.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I mean, but every little community has its own symphony orchestra, and some of them are a little better than others. Doesn't matter. Just doesn't matter. What matters is to be able to go out and just enjoy music.
I enjoy music, but I do enjoy more popular stuff. Even with the low smaller bands, I'm always gravitating towards the popular music and the headline acts. But I go to festivals and I find people I've
Mhm.
never heard of, music I haven't heard before, and I enjoy it. And that's how we learn about. We don't kind of know what you like until you sort of hear it, and anything could just like that. All of a sudden, you could be a fan
That's
of it. That's the beauty of music, I think.
mhm.
Um, the book for
It's
you,
it's
what
from
do you
my
hope to get
heart to
out of
your
it?
heart.
Yeah. What do you hope to get out of writing this
What
book?
I
Is
hope to
there
get out of it, what I hope to get out of it is that a lot of people uh, decide they're going to just begin to look at this whole world, attend concerts. To me, that's very important. And it's not just important for me because I've done most of what I wanted to do in my life, but it's also important for growing orchestras and growing institutions to be able to develop an interest on the part of audiences and
are
have the audiences grow.
are orchestras in trouble, uh, generally speaking?
Uh, yes, some of them are. Yes, because some of them are. And the reason is that the audiences are growing, and the younger audiences, unfortunately, are not getting enough music education in the schools because they're getting computer training. And in the process of getting computer training, they're losing all of the fine arts courses that they should be getting.
Back in the day when we were doing music, or if you would learn to play music, you'd hear all the older stuff. Now there's there's a much more content that's able to be given. What is on your bucket list? You mentioned that you've done most of what you want to do. What's on the bucket list for you just in general now?
Well, my music festival continues to grow. And that's the northern border of Pennsylvania, southern border of New York. And to me, it's wonderful because I developed an orchestra of about 65 people that come from all over the world, of which 14 come from Indianapolis Symphony. And so I'm really dealing with a very high-end type of music making. And that will allow me, Matt, to do all kinds of music and do justice to all kinds of music.
You're retired, but you're still conducting for the festival. Is that?
Oh yeah, I mean, I have 18 concerts in 17 days at the festival from July 19th through August 4th, and it's outrageous the demands that I have, and the festival continues to grow, and it continues to attract people from all over the world, both in the orchestra as well as in the audience.
I mean, that's a lot, right? That's just going 17 days in a row of doing. I assume it's more mentally draining on you than physically draining, or am I wrong in that?
It's both. I work out at a gym 3-4 times a week. I play golf a couple of times a week in order to be physically fit, because it does. Try holding your hands in the air for 2 hours.
I get tired doing anything for 2 hours, including lying down and watching television.
Yeah.
How do you keep mentally fit?
I keep mentally fit because I'm studying my scores.
Scores, and by scores is the written music.
Music, yeah, exactly.
People aren't looking at scores like in a sports.
No, I'm not thinking of that kind of sports scores. The musical scores, yes.
If I had a competition, how would you be able to judge? That feels like, if we were to say this person's the best or rank them, and if there was some sort of competition, which I'm sure there are, how would you judge? To me, it feel kind of like gymnastics, where it's kind of just an opinion, right?
Well, no, but it starts off with more than an opinion. For example, most competitions start off with maybe a string quartet, 4 string players, and they're playing a piece of music, and you're given the music, but the string players in different spots make mistakes on purpose, and you need to circle the mistakes on the score. So that's the first step.
Okay, so that's judging. I'm talking about on the playing side.
Well, that's the first step. The first step is to make sure that you've got someone that hears the problems and is able to resolve the problems. The second step is you're in front of an orchestra, and when you're in front of an orchestra, you're given a soloist, and you have to accompany a soloist, which means you've got to be able to adjust to the personality of the person who is a soloist, and have the orchestra be clear enough in your motions that they're with you, that they don't make mistakes.
What do we have behind you? What's on the wall? I'm a nostalgia.
No, I've got the musical score there. I also have some photographs. I also have I can hold this up.
Oh, there you go.
Hole in one.
Wow, hole in one.
Hole in one. It's my second hole in one. My first hole in one is on the wall. It's just, hey, come on, Matt. It's just dumb luck, really.
Of course, but still, it's to be able to do it. I have a hole in one on my Golden Tee game in my man cave. That to me was incredible. It's the same dumb luck. Who knows? You're just putting it up there. House on fire. House on fire. Everyone's out. all the family and pets and anything you really need to survive, what would you take? What has the most meaning to you on stuff that you've collected over the years? With I see you have some letters on the back.
Oh, sure. I have a lot of things that I've collected that are in the book. Now, I think that probably what I would want to take with me if everything burned down would be my collection of Dvorak recordings that I made when I was in what was Czechoslovakia. The complete recordings.
Okay.
And I was the first American allowed to conduct all 9 symphonies of Dvorak on recording. So
worth more to you or to in general?
no, well, they're worth a lot to me. Some publications have called me the greatest living conductor of Dvorak. I don't take a lot of, like Shelley said, that and $2 will get me on the subway.
Yeah, will it still get you on the say? We used to say that in a quarter will get you this, and you're like, not in this age, not in
this age. That's right. It used to be 15 cents for the subways.
Yeah, we're going to let you out of the Wolff Den with the same question everyone gets. You get 24 hours to spend with anybody in the world. They have to be alive, and you can't be related to them. Who would you choose, and what would you guys do? Doesn't have to be music related. Could be anyone in the world.
I would want to spend time with Mark Cuban.
Mark Cuban.
I think Mark Cuban is a remarkable. Mark Cuban, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big Mark Cuban fan.
Mark Cuban is truly a.
What would you guys like to talk about most?
He gives new meaning to the term entrepreneur. Yeah, well, he gives new meaning to the term entrepreneur, and he understands the business that he's in, and his ability to communicate is critical. I would love to spend time with him.
Yeah, that'd be a great choice. I would too. I think if we have enough money or influence, we can make it happen. And Mark, if you're listening to this, let's chat. I'd love to do some stuff with what I do for his team and some of the companies that he owns, which would be good. The book is called Travels with Stephen, the Most Famous Unknown Conductor, Stephen Gunzenhauser. Go to StephenGunzenhauser.com and you can find the book on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Check out the book. I look forward to reading it, and I appreciate your time here. And
sure. Get back to me. Get back to me after you've read it. I want to know what your reactions are.
I will do that. I appreciate you sharing your thoughts on something that most people don't know a lot about. I think that's the first step in educating, is just getting people to understand that this exists, and let them. The fans are the ones who are going to take it to the next level and to keep it going. So, but they need to know it's available and why they should be listening to it. So I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, and anybody that wants to write to me, they can come to my website, StephenGunzenhauser.com, and I'd be glad to answer any messages that come to me.
Perfect. Love it. Great to chat with you. As always, thanks to Ross for setting this up. He's the best. And we'll talk to everyone soon. Have a great night. Listen to some symphonic music, whether it's pops or not.
Right,
and,
exactly.
Check out the book, and you can find some of your scores online, right? You said go to
absolutely. I know I've recorded over 80 CDs, but there's still at least 30 or 40 that are available online.
There you go. That's the first step. Listen to it, and then want to listen to more. Appreciate your time. We'll talk to you soon.
Great. Thank you very much, Matt.
Thanks a lot.